It's a new season. It's a new day. Welcome to another episode of the Creators World Podcast. My name is Justin. I am your host and the founder. For those who may be wondering, why do we start with a song? Because why not? The Creators World Podcast is a platform created for Christian creatives, entrepreneurs, and purpose seekers to be refreshed, renewed, and revitalized for their God given purposes and callings. Because what? Life is rough. The road is tough. People are ghetto, but we are called to continue. So, in the midst of all of that, just want to come together, talk about stuff that matters, and ways to allow you to keep going through the things that you need to go through so that you can get to the place that you want to get to, or the place that God has called you to, or the place that someone else said that you're good at, whatever the case might be. So this is actually going to serve as the last episode for this season before we take a little break. But the funny thing about it is that it actually starts at the beginning of a new um, like meteorological season or was it equinox? This is equinox. It's fall, um, but it's a new physical season in the world. It's fall now, so we just had summer. Summer's great. Summer's fun. Summer's full of vibes, but now we're into fall, which really means we're getting closer to winter, which does mean Christmas, which is fun, but winter comes with a lot of things. Fall comes with a lot of things. A lot of people go through what's called like seasonal sadness, seasonal depression, the winter blues, whatever you want to call it, just because things change. And the fact of the matter is, like, people just don't like change. For example, I cut my hair, like it's fully cut off, right? Well, not fully, but like it was like past past my shoulder blades, right? I go to church on Sunday. I cut it on Saturday. Go to church on Sunday, and some people were like, "You cut your hair," and I was like, "Yeah, it was time for a change. Like it needed to go. Like me personally, I was tired of washing it, detangling it. It was long. It was very long. When fully stretched out, it was like halfway down my back. It had been going for like a year and a half, I think, at that point. So it was to me, it was becoming to the point where it was distracting from being managed. Another like very practical thing, like if I'm going to do content, you got to make sure your hair looks decent. And it would often be like it was too much. So it's like let's cut out the issue, if you will, and still keep it like a little curly, little whatever, but whatever. But the point is, people responded and they were like, "I can't believe you cut it. Oh my gosh, I live vicariously through your hair," or like all these things because people just don't like change. And so the question I asked was like, "Well, does it look okay? Like, is it cool?" And they were like, "I mean, yeah, it looks fine, but we were used to it being the other way. That was your look." And so it just reminded me how much, like, in whatever situation, like humans just don't like change. We just don't. And I think that when you are in entrepreneurship, when you are in creative entrepreneurship, when you are pursuing your goals, I think you have to realize that change is inevitable. I think last year, I excuse me, fall allergies is another thing I do not like. I launched this podcast in the fall of last year. I think one of the first couple episodes I talked about was writing like seasonal shifts and things of that nature, and talked about Ecclesiastes, where it says there's a time and season for everything, a time to mourn, a time to be joyful, a time to reap, a time to sow, a time to laugh, a time to cry, a time, whatever. Like there's all these opposites, and I think that when we think about our own lives and the own things that we go through, we want the high time, right? Like, so we've been talking about the valley this season, end of last season, the whole create as well. This year has been about the valley, um, and we want the up, right? We want the time to laugh, the time for joy, the time to reap, but we don't necessarily want the flip side of it, the time to sow, the time to mourn, the time to cry. Like that's not what's on our bingo card for the year, but unfortunately it is a part of the process. Like you have to go through that. Things are cyclical. And I feel like, and then not to be like doom and gloom, but if you are in a period of consecutive wins, I think you should look for a shift. I'm not saying look for a loss. I'm saying look for a shift. So if you're constantly winning, constantly winning, constantly winning, be prepared for some tension to come that could still help you grow, right? Um, I think that's one of the things that we have to think about, that change isn't always bad, but it is generally always uncomfortable. And we don't like discomfort. And that makes sense because who's really gunning for discomfort? Because that's crazy. um, but we have to learn to just lean into that. So for me right now, I feel like I am going through a lot of change. This year has been a lot of change, from people that were key contributors to things that I did were no longer available to do so, or not willing to do so, or things changed, or they moved. Like, there's a lot of things that have happened this year that, as I've been thinking about it over the past couple of weeks, because I have not actually done an episode since August. Yeah, now that I think about it, I think we got into the Holy Hoodlum kind of vein, and then after Holy Hoodlum, the things that I put out were the podcasts with the vocalists and the musicians. That was Those were recorded back in like June, so I haven't actually like sat down to do this in a while. But I have been thinking. I've been thinking about you guys. I've been thinking about um, the things to talk about, the things to investigate, and one of them is just really change. There are some people who get so excited at the beginning of fall because they're like, "Ooh, pumpkin spice latte, the football season. There are, pumpkin patches, hay rides, cooler weather, sweater weather, Popeyes, like all that." But there are also people who grieve it, who are like, "Ugh, I'm gonna miss the 90-degree weather days. I'm gonna miss walking at 8 o'clock at night and it's still being light outside. I'm gonna miss the beach trips. I'm gonna miss just the amount of sun and the fun and just being outside and all of that." So, a couple things I'd want to, as I've been thinking about this, is like, the first thing I'll say, I was gonna do a different order, but I'm gonna go with this one. The first thing I would say is, it's okay to grieve change. It's okay to not be excited about the new situation that's happening. Like, I think that American culture, church culture as well, would make us think that we should be super excited about everything that comes our way. And that's just not realistic. um, it's just not. It's just not realistic. And I think that when we get to the point where you can actually like have a language for what you're feeling, that helps you to actually get through the process better. So, practical example, if you are we're working with a client and the retainer is being cut for um no fault of your own, no reason of your own, right? That's hard. Like, if you've been working with someone for, a couple years, couple months, even whatever the case is, and they're like, "Hey, we're just not going to renew because we're not doing the project anymore." Like, right? Like, you could be working for someone who is filming something, and you've been working with them for a year and a half, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not going to do our podcast anymore. We're not going to do our movie anymore, our web series, or whatever the case is, or we're not going to do these photo shoots or whatever. Thank you for your service so much. We've appreciated everything, but next month will be our last month." That's hard because, one, you're grieving the loss of money. Let's just be honest, that you're used to a certain level of income. You're probably used to a certain level of access to that person. In general, if it's a good engagement, you're probably happy to be around said individual or their company, right? So you now have to grieve the fact that, like, you're losing a person in a rhythm that you're used to. And then three, I think, again, as creators and entrepreneurs, a lot of times we get very hung up in our identity being in what we do and not just who we are. So when an engagement ends, you have to almost detach that from your identity, because you can easily be like, "Man, I'm no longer the director of photography for such and such." You may not be the director of photography for whatever, but you still are a director of photography. But more important, you are still who you are, whether you're working or you're not. So grieving change is a big thing. Two, accepting it. Like, realizing that the change is happening is that's really what I wanted to do as the first one. But I feel like you can't accept something until you grieve a thing, at least for me. Like, um and there's things right now that I am not ready to fully accept, because I'm still in the process of like, okay, this is changing. This is not going to be the same way anymore. Like, and we will. we will talk about that soon. Just not right now because I don't think it would be helpful to have that conversation right now. Um, but yeah, but then accepting it. So accepting that the change is coming, accepting that more change will inevitably come. I mean, I don't know who said it, but the only constant in life is change. And whoever said it, they should be paid $1 million because they're so true. Like they're so correct because life is constantly changing. Friends are changing and not always in a bad way, right? Like I think we also think change is always inevitably bad, but even if change is good, it can still be uncomfortable. Like you can be promoted to something, and which is good. It could come with more money, more responsibility, more alignment to your mission and your passion and your goals, but it still is going to be change, and it still is going to be a struggle because we get used to scientifically we would say like homeostasis, like you get used to existing in a certain state, right? But when change comes along and pushes you out of that state, you have to adjust everything. Like you can have a promotion on a job that now you have to dress differently for. So that changes your wardrobe. You could have a promotion in a gig that now you have to send out different levels of status reports or use a different part of your brain that you didn't use before. Like if you go from being like a production assistant to a producer or a first AD, or I don't know why I'm like in the film vein today. I try to switch it up to make sure I'm not always talking about the same stuff. But like, if you're an assistant director and now you're a director or whatever the case is, like you were a background singer, now you're a featured vocalist or whatever the change, the promotion is, it's a good thing, but it's a different mindset. There's always a shift that comes with that. And I think that you have to accept that people may look at you differently now. Like you may have been promoted and you're excited about your change, but it's very possible that people are not excited about your change. And I'm not even saying that in some like hater type of thing because I don't think that's necessarily always applicable the way that we think that it is. But I think that some people don't know how to interact with you now, right? If y'all were peers and y'all were both assistant producers or whatever, and now you're a producer, they may not be hating on you, but they may just not know how to interact with you now. Like, okay, so you're like technically my boss now. So like, do we still go out for lunch? Do I still text you stuff? Do I need to email you stuff now? I was slacking you before, but now do I need to send you an email or a formal status report? Like sometimes people just have to get used to the new normal. Um, so grieving, accepting, and also learning. So then the third thing that I would say will change, learn something in the change. Right now, there is a change that I'm experiencing that I am truly learning a lot about myself, how I interact with other people, and how I feel about certain things. And in that change, I am learning that I do change well when I feel like change is being managed well. In this situation, I don't feel like change is being managed well, and it is causing tension and frustration and angst and all of the negative words and feelings in my mind. Like my mind, my heart, my soul, all the spirit, all the above. They're just troubled. And I think that's something I'm learning because other times, like I've had a lot of change this year in general, right? Like, um, I was just thinking about what to say, like publicly. That's why I was pausing. But like, okay, simple thing, like very simple thing. And he may watch this, who knows? But Ethan was before I say what Ethan's role was, Ethan is the Ethan started off as just the brother of my best friend, but Ethan over time became my brother as well and a good friend. And he was here in the Virginia area, and then he said the Lord led him to Arizona, so he moved. So that is a huge change. He was at my house a lot, like we chilled, like just hung out or whatever. He also happened to be the drummer for all of my events. He was really one of the creatives behind a lot of the music that we did, and that we still do. So now the workflows have changed because there was a time where I could be sitting like right where I'm sitting now. Well, really, I sit on the couch, but I could be sitting on the couch and he's probably on the other couch. And we'd be watching TV silently, not really saying a word, be there for hours and not really say a word to each other. And I say, what would you think if we combine this song together? And then he kind of look at me and he go, and he think about it and he'd be like, well, maybe, or he'll say no or yeah. And then he would start working on it. He had this little keyboard thing that he would just like take it out and attach to his computer. And then he'd be just hitting stuff. He'd have headphones on. And then like maybe the next day he'd come over and he's like, oh, here's this demo or whatever. That ease of proximity communication is no longer here because he is several hundred miles away. He is two time zones away. So I when I go to text him, I have to think like in my morning is like middle of the night for him still. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna hit him up right now because that doesn't make sense, right? So that's a big change. So um we did fly him back for Holy Hoodlum. He was the drummer. So that was really cool. But even in that, it was a weird process because he normally does a lot of the vocal stuff when we were practicing. Like he will listen to us and tell us, he'll correct us, he'll coach us, he'll give us parts, he'll do whatever, he'll rearrange music, he'll like he was really instrumental with that. But he was not able to do that this time because he was not here. um so it was a big change. It was different. Like, we made it through for sure, but it was definitely different without him being here. And then when he came back, it was like, oh, like harmony is restored. Like he's here. But then when we put him back on the plane, it's like, oh, he's gone. And so like for my Christmas event, we're not flying him back for this one because Christmas event is free. So there's no revenue coming in. So there's no real money to pull an outside musician in from a different state. So I think that's gonna be weird to me because that's gonna be the first event that he's not a part of since I've really started doing events on my own. So that's gonna be strange. Like it's just weird. I also his brother, who is Clay, my best friend, he was unable to be a part of Holy Hoodlum this year, and that was also strange because he has been a part of the event since we began. So like that's another change that it's like, wow, that's different. Like you just get used to people being a part of certain processes. And when they're no longer a part for whatever reason, it's like, okay. But as I said, you have to grieve it, you have to accept it, and you need to learn from it. So for me, like in both of those situations with both of them, like I grieved the fact that Ethan wasn't close, that Clay wasn't able to be a part of the show. I accepted it because what are you really gonna do? Like you can fuss, you can fight, you can do whatever, but ultimately, if someone has whatever reason, the legitimate, not legitimate, whatever you want to call it, if they're not able to do it, they're not able to do it, right? If you want someone to be your vocalist and they say no, you have to accept it. Like if you are want to continue to work for somebody and they say there's no money in the budget and there's no like room on their team or they're not doing whatever it is anymore, then you have to accept it. Like acceptance is huge and then learn. So like what did I have to learn? I had to learn that, and so I used the band a lot. So like Mario had always said that we should get a fourth person because we were basically a three-person band for the longest time. It was Clay, Mario, Ethan. And then Mario and Clay would either be keys or bass, respectively, and then Ethan would pretty much hold down drums. Mario at one point was like, we should have a fourth, just because you should have redundancy and it also helps to fill out the sound. Well, we did have a four-person band at the Create as well this year, which introduced Deshaun, and Deshaun is a great addition and asset to the band, even though Mario fired him because he said he acted up during Holy Hill, but that's okay. I still have hired him. But with that being the case, bringing him in, learning that okay, it is okay to actually expand your circle. Like that was a lesson for me. I had to learn, okay, you don't know Deshaun, but you can learn to trust him. If one of your other key contributors says he's good, he's solid, learn to trust him in that point. Learn to let go and allow that. Like there's a comfortability that comes with Mario, Ethan, Clay that it's not that Deshaun's not a comfortable person, but just that I had never really done anything with him yet. So it was like, ooh, how do I like, does my style work with him? Does this like, how is this going to go? And in the end, it worked out really well. So much so that we ended up with a three-piece for Holy Hoodlum, and Deshaun, it was Deshaun, Mario, and Deshaun, Mario, and Ethan, right? So the learning there was the show can go on without somebody. I'm not saying like, and this is, please understand, this is not like um replacement theology or anything. I'm not saying like you can just replace somebody. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying you can learn that you can navigate around situations by having other people, by doing something differently, by being creative, by doing whatever. Like your show, like I'm talking about my event, which was a show, but like whatever your creative life is, that's your show. So like your show must go on. Um, if you have somebody who um does all your audio engineering or your video production or whatever the case is, and they move or they're in a bad space or they don't want to do it anymore, they're just busy or they get booked on tour or something like that, your show must go on. Like you cannot let another external person or even yourself internally stop you, that has changed, stop you from doing what God has called you to do. Because again, as we said in the intro, like you are called to continue, you're called to go forth, and like we have to like the mission is important. I wrote down something a couple weeks ago that like are your excuses, let me see if I can find it real quick because I feel like it would be important here. Are your excuses and insecurities more important than God's mission? And so to that, in this case, are your excuses, your insecurities, and your discomfort with pain and change more important than God's mission? And the submitted Christian, the only answer is no, they're not more important. Even though it hurts, even though it's frustrating, that doesn't mean that you get to stop. That's not the case, right? Discomfort does not mean stop. Jesus had discomfort in the Garden of Gethsemane, but he still continued. Jesus had pain and discomfort while being flogged from court hall to court hall, courtroom to courtroom, and ultimately dragging the cross on his back and dying on the cross. That was a very uncomfortable situation for him. And yet he could have gotten off at any time, healed his body, killed everyone there, or didn't necessarily have to kill him, but just like, hey, go away, whatever the case is. But he still endured that. He still went through that. He still existed through the change. The disciples, even after Jesus ascended, that was a change. They were used to walking with this man for 3 years, and he was the one doing the preaching, the teaching, the healing, the whatever. But now Jesus is saying, hey, you guys are the church now. You guys are my hands and feet. You guys are the ones who are actually going to put forth the work of the gospel. So that was a change for them. So now they have to adjust to this new normal, and they did. But I'm sure it was uncomfortable. I'm sure it was hard. And even with the disciples, which became apostles in that point, like in Acts 2, when the Holy Spirit came upon them, he gave them boldness, he gave them courage, he gave Peter the ability to get up and preach in front of 3,000 people, and they all got saved and were added to the kingdom of God. So when you are in your uncomfortable season of change, and this is me talking to myself, ask the Holy Spirit to lead and guide you into all truth, like he's supposed to do. John 14 something. Um, Let him lead and guide you in all truth, and that truth includes getting through the pain of change, if you will. So yeah, um, that's really about it. Just kind of want to drop that as kind of like the ending of the season, but I think it's important to really, as the earth shifts from like the actual physical and natural season, fall is often a time where people fall off from things. Fall is a time where people um get discouraged and get lonely and all sorts of like negative things, right? Like spring is an awakening, like it's just like, oh, we're thawing out, we're ready. And then summer, like people just be lit, like the events be popping, everything. But fall is hard because you, like, especially if you're an event person like me, I think every event I do has its own challenges, right? Holy Hoodlum, I'm competing with other summer events like vacation, travel, back to school, all the stuff, right? The Create as well, I'm competing against the beginning of the year. People are still kind of thawed out. It's winter. People on social media fast, all the above. They may not see it. Carols for a Cause, which is like smack dab in late fall, because December is really still fall until the 22nd, 21st, 22nd, depending on the year. But essentially winter. But people are, it's like they want to be in the house. it's cold, or you're competing against other Christmas events. So like if you are a creative, it can be hard in the fall to get people's attention. But even in that change, and you see a decline in sales, or pop-ups aren't popping up the way that they used to be, or whatever the case is, like pivot with the change. So maybe it's a time to do more online content, because in the fall people like to be on their couches watching TV, snuggled up in blankets or their hoodies or whatever, or chilling and doing whatever. Um, so maybe you move to more online stuff. Maybe you take a break during the fall and you get to recharge, so that you come back strong in the spring and the summer. Maybe you just don't do anything during that time, so you ride the wave of preparation. So you store up like like a squirrel. You hibernate during the fall and the winter, and you come back alive to the spring. I have a friend who says that she, with her business and her creativity, she's following the natural rhythms of the earth. And that for her includes not doing as much in the fall, and definitely not doing much in the winter, and then like coming back in the spring and the summer and like early fall type of thing. So all in all, do what's best with you, do what's best for you. Grieve change, accept change, learn from it. I'm currently doing all three simultaneously with different areas in my life. I will talk about them more, but I want to get through it first. I think sometimes you can talk about stuff too early, which can just mess up witness and stuff like that. Like just is what it is. Like if I talked about it right now, it'd still be very fresh, and it probably wouldn't be that helpful. So yeah, but like I said, for now this is it for season 2. Season 3 will be back at some point this fall. We're gonna be going on to our next theme, so not like leaving the valley, because there are always going to be valleys in life, but we won't be talking about the valley as much, at least explicitly. um but our next theme, I think, is something very important for us as Christian creatives, Christian entrepreneurs, just Christian blank, whatever you are, fill in the blank. I think it's important for us to go through our next topic. So that's that. Only announcement I got right now is December 6th, Saturday, December 6th is Carol's Forecast. There's no flyer for it yet, because why do y'all care? It's September. Uh, and yeah, so that's really about it. So for now, see y'all later. Season 2 is over.